item if you would like to.
Okay, so we'll do it that way. Okay, so let's move it down now. Also now, at this point, let's go ahead and do the presentations before we move council member comment forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Presentations first?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So let's go and do the proclamations first, please. Then we will move council members' comments up. That way we'll stick with business straight through after we get the formalities done.
And then you could choose to do public comment before or after the council member.
We'll do it after. Let's just get that all done. Let's get it knocked out.
So, I'm very appreciative for the levels of civic engagement in Nevada City. I would say that the volume of political rhetoric has raised throughout the nation, but that the actual levels of civic engagement have decreased pretty much across the boards. Nevada City is probably an exception to that, where people continue to be active and engaged, and probably the apex of that is serving on the city council, where you get to do all of this work for exactly $0. If you wanted the money, you go for the treasurer or the clerk, which is a couple $100 a month. But if you want the no money, then you go for the council. I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know kind of the history tradition of how we have celebrated folks coming off of their term as mayor in Nevada City, but I certainly would like to, on the go forward, make sure that we always recognize our volunteer civil servants for their time. And by coincidence, we didn't do anything when Councilmember Minette's term as mayor came off. So with your indulgence this evening, I didn't write a proclamation, mostly because I didn't think it would be nice to the mayor to have to read a whole bunch of whereases, nor to have to sign his own proclamation that is celebrating him. So instead, I think it's appropriate, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, that the mayor that will succeed a previous mayor would thank the outgoing mayor. So in this case, for Mayor Minette in her previous term, Mayor Strasser, and then ultimately after that, soon to be Mayor-elect Fleming for Mayor Strasser, whose term ends midnight, June 30th. So, and not your first rodeo in that seat, but so I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So Aaron, here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
4 years later. So basically, I'll open it up to the public and to the other councilors, but I want to thank you for, first of all, 4 years ago, running, sticking your neck out, going against another well-known community member. It took guts to do that. It's not everybody will make that effort with the family time they have to give up, the personal time, the work time that we all have to give up. So first of all, I didn't even know you when you ran. Saw your signs popping up. And so I want to thank you for that. The 4 years I've known you, you've stepped up quietly. A lot of people don't see what some of us do behind the scenes. So many different things, I can't list them all. And specifically what's been in the media, the fire safe programs and e-waste pickup, green waste pickup, regular garbage pickups, arranging that with waste management, with Shalati, going out of your way to arrange for the volunteers to run those days, the community cleanups, all those things take people to do it. Renette used to do it. You kind of stepped in, took it over, and if you weren't there, nobody else probably really would have stepped up and done it. It takes a lot of time. And it speaks volumes that the council member that you replaced in her seat did not even ask for a recount when the vote was so close, because she stepped out and knew that you could do the job, and that was a quote from her. So with that, I want to thank you. I'm going to give this to you, and then I'm going to open it up to the public.
Thank you.
And, thank you for your commitment. Kind of out of context, but if anybody would like to speak from the public, this is your chance to say anything about Erin. I'm going to turn over to her in a second so that she has a few minutes to speak. Would anybody like to say anything? Okay, anybody at the table? So, Doug?
I mean, you want to go first, or?
No, please.
I just
We're
want,
so excited.
first of all, Aaron, I met you during my first year on the council, when we got smacked with COVID. And your leadership during the COVID thing, working with Katrina, trying to figure out what the hell was going on, what we were going to do as a city. There was no script. There was no playbook to work from. And you, I mean, had to make some tough calls. You were out in the front of that. You took a lot of heat and you did the right thing and you made this town safer. I mean, you really did. In two ways you've done that. I mean, that's with COVID. I mean, you're the one who was instrumental in us instituting a mask fine. You know, we were the second jurisdiction in Northern California that actually had teeth in any kind of enforcement mechanism for people not wearing masks. Not that we ever used it or needed to, but you responded to the needs of downtown. You heard that people downtown weren't feeling safe going into restaurants and retail shops, and the business owners talked to you, and you got us to move on that. And it was a really big move, and I'm very proud of you for that. And just the way you navigated through that. And then that goes into the Fire Safe Council, which you championed. And, you know, you turned it into something that it wasn't, and you got people to actually make some serious progress. And I got to learn a little bit about that. And I didn't even know. Like Dwayne says, a lot of the stuff you do is behind the scenes. People don't really know. And then culminating that with your green waste efforts. You know, I was at your last one that you organized. You got us all to do things, you know, which is hard. Getting us out of the house and to go out there and load, you know, trash and green waste was good. But, you know, we got to see the public and they were so thankful. They were so thankful that we were accepting their trash. And, you know, that, like Dwayne said, that wouldn't have happened without you. So I'm really appreciative of your leadership, and I know you care about this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and so my comments are for the both of you and for us as a council. I'm just not quite 2 years in. You know, I wasn't sure. You never know what you say yes to. You know, when you say yes and you run it, you never know what you want. What we found was that we were in a position where, as a council, we couldn't live with the direction of our city, and that we needed to stand up for the public health and safety of our community. And we needed, as a council together, figure out what needed to happen. And it became a wave of unprecedented wave of change. Been a change guy my whole life. No one's ever seen this level of change in a short amount of time. Because we needed to stand up for our community. And we did it together. And we did it together, and we stood fast. We had great advisors. We had good support, but we still needed to find that support. We still needed to listen to our advisors. We still needed to deliberate, but we were the ones who made that decision, this council together. And even though we have had our differences, some of them significant, when it came down to it, when it hit the rubber hit the road and we needed to stand up, we did it. We never wavered. We were unrelenting in what it took to reset the table. And now, as we have two new council members coming in, for the first time in many years, the city can stand here and look forward. That we have a future, a different future, one that we decide as a community. And you guys were integral in that. And I am honored to have served with you and so proud. If I walked out the door tomorrow, I would feel immense success for what we did in the city, securing a viable future for the city that we all love so much. It has been great to be with you and a part of that. You know, we've learned from each other. We've worked together. I will always salute anybody that's crazy enough to step into elected officialdom these days. But we did it without knowing that we would face some of the biggest decisions we've ever had to make and that you would ever have to make in the city. So thank you as a citizen, but be proud. Be very, very proud of what we did here on behalf of our.
Thank you. Daniel?
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for that, and Doug and Dwayne. I won't repeat efforts, but I will say to Aaron, you're a big part of the reason that I'm sitting here, encouraging me to run, supporting me, seeing that Nevada City had a subsect of its population, young-ish folks that weren't represented up here. And I'm so happy to be here 2 years later. Thank you for your support in that. And also you've been a tremendous ally. And I think more so, in my experience, more so than anyone on council, myself included, you are someone who comes to this table and listens and is willing to change your mind, whereas it's not always true for me. So I really respect and value that, and I've learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Aaron?
It's been a pleasure serving. Thank you all for working so hard. You know, I learned a lot in 4 years, and it wasn't easy coming into this job. There was no one to tell me what to do. And I hope we've changed that. And I know we have, because my first year in, I made sure that we changed, that every council member from this point on would have support coming into this job. And so I feel better about the new people coming in, that they've got a great road ahead of them. And I appreciate how well this council has worked together, because yes, we had to make a lot of hard decisions and they got done. And I'm looking forward to seeing the future of Nevada City. I hope that it moves in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
And a different piece of glass. I promise you, even though Councilmember Manetz is taller, it's the same amount of glass between them. It's just how it's twisted and blown. But what I would like to say about these is that they're very nice, and we've given them one to Joan. Should be told it was bigger than the ones we're giving them to you. But it is a shop local thing as well. So, sourced from here in Nevada City. I think they're beautiful pieces and better than just some piece of paper hanging on the wall. But if you disagree with that,
I think they're gorgeous.
But I will give it to Vice Mayor Fleming to hand over the piece to Mayor Strasser.
Wow. Wayne, it takes more than a few words to thank Wayne. It's 12 years? 12 years. Wayne has not only done this, consecutively for 8 years. You left and you came back, right?
No.
Oh, it's been 12 consecutive years? Oh my goodness, you're a glutton for punishment. But if you think about, one of the things I love about Dwayne is that I get all the historical facts. I mean, he doesn't go back that far, but we're a relatively new council. And Dwayne is the oracle of what has happened before. And you don't learn from the past, blah, blah, blah. And so he's been really helpful to me in just how to navigate some of the nuances of this job. Nothing is really straightforward here. And what I've learned from Dwayne is that, if you care about the city and you just put that sentiment into action, you could do a lot of good. I think that one of the things that I know that he's done the longest, and one of the most significant things that is still going on, is fighting to keep the courthouse downtown. This is something that's critical for our community. And Dwayne has gone to Sacramento numerous times. He's gone to San Francisco. He's met with the Judicial Council. And it's not a fun process. And it's not a process where we have an even seat at the table or I don't know. Something we're not, we don't have a great say in the matter. And Dwayne has found ways to, amplify our voice and get heard. And, I think we're in a lot better position today to negotiate with the Judicial Council and the powers that be with the courthouse because of Dwayne's work and his leadership on that. So for that, I really want to thank you. And just Gary touched on it. We had a lot of hard work to do here, and and Dwayne's leadership sort of through the transition that we went through was instrumental in us getting there. And I haven't always agreed with Dwayne, but I always agreed with the outcome that Dwayne helped foster. I'd have to say that, and I really appreciate that. And I've been able to talk to Dwayne one-on-one and get a lot of good advice. And I hope we can continue to do that. I know you're busy with your new job, but I hope you won't leave us hanging here. I'm going to need you, as I transition into this position. I don't know how to do this. I'm going to need your help. So Dwayne, thank you. And, I said this in an article and people misinterpreted it. And the article in the Union said, he will be missed. And everybody thought Dwayne had died. So we got a lot of calls about that, but you will be missed by the city. And, one of the things I said in that article, and I'll have to repeat it, is that you definitely can say you left this town in a better place than you found it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I guess I have to officially hand this over to you.
To the public and then the council.
Oh, I'm supposed to do this. Would anybody from the public like to say any words on behalf of, well, there we are, Chief Goodspeed. Thank you so much for coming up.
Vice Mayor Secretary.
I just want to say thank you, Dwayne, for all your years of service. This is kind of bittersweet. It's sad to see you go, but I'll get a chance to work with you at your new position, and looking forward to that with your expertise working with local government. It's just been a pleasure, bike races and all the different projects we work on. And I just want to wish you the best. And thank you for all your years of service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I'd like to remind everyone that it was Dwayne that got the bicycle races here. And that was a tremendous benefit, not only for Nevada City, but also for Nevada County, California in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Council members?
Yeah.
Danielle, you look like you want to go.
I'm ready. I don't want to go last. Dwayne, you're elder statesman.
There you go.
We're losing our elder statesman, and you're like my surprise ally, which I've so enjoyed. And just really something I love about you, Dwayne, is you're curious. Like if I bring something to you or I have an idea, you ask questions. You don't respond or react to it immediately. You have a curiosity about it, and which allows for there to be openness. And you really heard me when I've asked for things or brought things to you, and I really appreciate that. And like Doug, I hope you're still available. I'm going to be voice memoing you and expect a response.
Not going anywhere.
Thank you.
Derek?
Yeah, well, everything that I said before, but also I also just, I will always admire commitment, always admire commitment. I also want to say this is no small phrase. There's a person who lives in meetings their entire life. You can run it. And for me, that's big stuff. That's how we do it. So thank you for all of that. Thank you.
Eric?
I know, and learning to run a meeting on Zoom is a whole issue. So Dwayne, thank you for the 4 years. Thank you for, guiding me, helping me. You really stuck with me on a number of things, and I've learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate it. And you've given advice, but you've also really helped in the moments when things got a little nuts and crazy. And you were that center of this council, and I so much appreciate it. And it's been an honor working with you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good. I'll turn it back over to you now, Dwayne.
So the first thing is, yes, thank you for this beautiful award. My new job, we had a gentleman that had been there 23 years that just retired. And the director called and asked if I would get a plaque for him. And it just sat wrong with me. It was a plaque after 23 years. And so I knew enough about his passions that he's a mushroom guy. So I went out to the Mush Barn and got him a gift certificate to the Mush Barn. And bought a bag full of fresh mushrooms for him. And it went from a plaque, you could see him kind of looking at it, to the bag of mushrooms, and he was excited. So this is nice. Something very unique. I appreciate that. And
Would you rather have mushrooms?
no. I'm not a mushroom guy. But I know if I want to, I can break that off and hang it up around my neck. And that's beautiful glasswork. I do appreciate that. And thank you guys for the kind words. I would say the only what you summarized, I hope I left the city in a better position than when I got here. I had no intention of running for city council. We had a wonderful gentleman, a family friend, that came out of retirement to be Nevada City's interim at a time that we were struggling, Gene Albach. and convinced me to run. And his quote was, "You and a couple of people ought to get on the ballot. You'll never win, but you'll shake things up with the status quo." He was not happy at the time with the situation here, and things weren't getting done. And then sure enough, I won. So be careful what you wish for. And then once you get in, we've had some really amazing people over the years to work with, and I appreciate a lot of the things that we've achieved. Frustration sometimes of the things we have not achieved. Disappointed I'm not leaving with the courthouse secure downtown. Little disappointed that we haven't achieved some other parking improvements, some things that we have on the books that we've worked hard to get to that point. Happy to see that we hopefully soon will have some new signs after years of sign committee with Mimi and Dennis Kutch and so many other people that worked on that. And you see the citizens pitch in their time, and then they get frustrated when things don't happen. They don't realize the timeline that we have even at local government, and how sometimes it grinds to a halt and you have to kick it to wake it back up. Probably the littlest things that I'm happy about are the simple things, the railing on the sidewalk. Coming down Pine Street after seeing several people over the years slip in the snow, come down Victoria Christmas and fall on the street. And it took years to get us to get the money, to get staff to be able to make that happen. And now it's happened. It's wonderful. New sidewalks around town. These are not the glorious things, but they're the simple little things. I think our police department turning the corner with our current interim chief. We've had some great people. Joan coming in. Doing my best. I hope I played a little part in sticking to my guns to keep the process going that brought Sean here. Silly things like insisting that we kept the granite edging on the Commercial Streets project. I didn't want the project to happen without that, and it seems silly, but to me that's the icing on the cake. And sticking with the fact that we actually made Commercial Street happen. I think long term the community will appreciate it, even though I know it was a bit of a struggle and there's still some people not happy, and that's okay. There's always somebody not happy out there, and I learned that the hard way too. Being a business person for so many years, we have people come in that were thrilled with the decision, and people that we know forever that quit talking to us because of a vote that we made. And it's unfortunate, but that's human nature. Seeing Mike here with our water treatment, wastewater treatment, I mean, people like that again, I knew way before my city life here, my council life. And it's funny how things come full circle with some amazing people that land where they land. Gabby's staff, everybody in staff here, Dawn, for years, Brian, Bill. I can't name everybody. Everybody's been great. Everybody's been amazing. So thank you. With that, let's get moving on with the meeting. So,
All right.
okay, before we go to public comment, we are going to move our council member comments forward. And I will do this again at the end of the meeting. So those of us that want to wait, if we have any comments about topical things that are going on, with that, I'm going to pass it on to Danielle or Sean.
Go ahead.
I heard his name, so I wasn't sure.
Sure.
Yeah, so as many of you know, my report is that on May 31st, Councilmember Manette, City Manager Sean Grayson, and I raised the pride flag above City Hall for the second year in a row. There were about 100 people present, give or take a few, both young folks, older folks, LGBTQ plus folks, and allies. And then a group of people, largely LGBTQ youth, helped us go around town and put the pride flags up Broad Street and Spring Street and Commercial Street. And the mood was extremely festive, and there was lots of joy and excitement for the youth and the adults, and of course, a lot of pride. In the last few weeks, the Chamber of Commerce, our own city dispatch council members, myself included, have received calls, emails, ranging in an array of responses. As a member of the community acknowledged by the presence of these flags, I found a number of the responses, quite honestly, disgusting, troubling, and skin-crawlingly homophobic. I will not use my words tonight or waste my breath repeating any of the bigotry that came out of that. Instead, what I'd like to do is I'd just like to take a few moments to thank residents who reached out to ask questions, who were curious, and also who shared their gratitude and support and joy at this beautiful, glorious, colorful site as you either drive up or walk into town. Those messages far outweighed the other messages and definitely went a long way and meant a lot to me personally. I'd like to share with you just a couple of them. One of them is an email that I got that I'm not sure was sent to other council members, so I just wanted to make sure that we get it into public record. It's from a woman named Diane Jacobson, longtime resident business owner. I'm sorry that I'm not able to attend this meeting in person, as I had previous grandmother duties this evening. But this letter is being read for me. My name is Diane Jacobson. My husband was raised here, and we came here after he graduated from chiropractic college. We have owned a local business, Jacobson's Chiropractic, for almost 45 years. Our daughter and son-in-law are both chiropractors in our office, and we have a strong family chiropractic business. We are happily enjoying 7 grandchildren now, all being raised in Nevada City. First of all, this is a side note, I want to applaud you for the renovation and beautification of Commercial Street. It is a lovely new addition to our town. Thank you for your efforts and foresight in this renovation. I am writing this in regards to a story that I want to share concerning the pride flags now gracing much of Broad and Commercial Streets. There was an incident that happened 38 years ago, and I know this incident because it happened to one of my children's kindergarten teachers in our local schools. She taught here for several years, and during this time, she fell in love with another woman who became her life partner. During these years, she shared their relationship with other staff members at the school, and unfortunately was basically forced out of her job by the school board and parents as they complained they did not feel comfortable having their children taught by a lesbian. This was about 1983, 1984. I was 3 years old. She was 35 years old at the time. She was meant to feel ashamed and was heartsick and left Nevada City with much anger about how she was treated in this community. So cut to all these years later, she hadn't returned to town since until last week when she agreed to come back to a celebration of a colleague from that time. One can only imagine the impact of driving back into Nevada City and being greeted with colorful and beautiful pride flags, which welcomed her, welcomed her knowing that, pride flags, which welcomed her, knowing that people like her were now welcomed and appreciated here. She burst into tears of relief and joy after having carried this stress and disappointment for so many years. I am sure that many of all ages are feeling supported and validated in the same way. I am grateful that our grandchildren are being raised in a community that respects and honors all people. Thank you for your efforts to pull this beautiful display of openness and acceptance in our community. Let's hope that we can all enjoy a gay pride parade next year. With much affection and appreciation for all you do so that we are able to enjoy such a magnificent life in Nevada City, I submit this letter for your records. Thank you, Diane Jacobson. So another instance I just want to touch on briefly is I was at the Juneteenth celebration on Monday at Pioneer Park by Color Me Human, and a young woman, 15 years old, Olivia, walked up to me and she said, I want to thank you for helping put the pride flags up in Nevada City. And I said, oh, you're so welcome. And we talked for a moment, and I could tell she was getting a little choked up. And all of a sudden she started crying. And she asked if she could hug me. And I said, yes, of course. And so we hugged, and she was tearing up, and she was expressing that this meant so much to her and her LGBTQ friends to be seen by their community. And when she was crying on my shoulder, I teared up naturally as well. And I did this because we share a struggle, right? This young woman and I, we both understand the power of acceptance and celebration when you've been repeatedly told by the world that you are bad or wrong or even perverse based on who you love or how you express your gender. This was a really, really, really touching moment. And numerous other youth have reached out to share similar sentiments. An NU senior told me via social media, quote, every LGBTQ youth I know feels safer in town since the pride flags are flying. So I look to my fellow council members and community in the audience, both at home and here today. And I say, this is why we did this. This is why we do this, right? We do this so that we can follow through on our promise as a council to create a safe, just, equitable, and inclusive town for all. And I just want to note too that I personally don't believe that this flag has to fly in opposition to any other flag. I think there's room for us to be able to represent varying views and varying groups of people, and that it doesn't have to be a competition, and that it doesn't have to be opposition. I would like to see there be room for all of us. That's my report. But I'm sorry, one more thing. I do want to request that my colleagues support direction to the city manager, and that's two-part. One, I would like to schedule a meeting of the Social Justice Policing Committee, which has previously been Gary and myself, in conjunction with the starting of the new police chief, to engage community on this topic, to work together with police on this specific topic. And then part two, bring back an item at the next council meeting, future council meeting, for a presentation from staff and the Chamber of Commerce related to flags, duration of flags being up, and event safety, and the future of policy recommendations. So I would love council support on
Rest
that.
of the council okay with that direction to staff?
Yeah, as long as we give adequate time.
Totally.
Aaron?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just, the only thing I add, yes, because we need to get this figured out so that it works out for everyone. I think we missed on Flag Day, just, a minor, we just didn't think
100%.
about it, we wouldn't have done that. As you said, I think you articulated it so clearly, we root for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll do better next year on Flag Day.
Please.
On Flag Day, I saw the American flags in the middle, and actually I loved it. I thought, what a great image that was, because we are all part of this country.
We're all
And, this is inclusive. So thank you, Daniela. I really appreciate everything you said. And, it's been hard. Last year, we had a lot of pushback when we put just the one flag up. And as Daniela knows, I received a lot of angry calls, but I have to tell you the praise from young people and people who live in this community of how grateful and wonderful they thought it was that we as a city did this. So I'm choosing to listen to them and not the people who choose to hate. So.
It might also, if I could just add briefly, the article in the Union this morning describing that, which is a history I'm aware of. Some right. For all the things that we love in the city could have been lost. Folks.
Thank you, Gary.
So, Sean, is that straight enough direction?
Yes.
That makes sense. And
Yep.
I think the other thing that I received, and again, it's my fault too. It's all of us. I'm pretty good, not pretty good. I actually never miss putting my flag out at home, but I believe we also missed this year. I got some letters. I don't know if it was Memorial Day. We didn't. One of our big events, we should have had the flags out separate from Flag Day that we also didn't. So that needs to be part of the conversation with the chamber. We need to make sure that we're on par in the future with those things. So we don't set aside our critical traditions and forget to be equitable to everybody. So thank you. Okay, so with that, does anybody else want to comment from council until later, right now? Okay, we'll deal with that later. So let's go ahead and move to public comment, and then we'll deal with consent since we're going to pull a few things. Okay, so public comment, folks. Government Code Section 54954.3 provides that any member of the public may address our city council on any matter not on tonight's agenda that is also within the subject matter jurisdiction of our city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. So when you do speak, we will not be responding. It's not because we are ignoring you or being rude. It's because we cannot in most circumstances. And if something is important to you, to us, we will move it on to an agendized item at one of our future meetings for a full discussion, vote the whole thing. So with that, I'm going to open this up to public comment, and I'm trusting Keith out there virtually will also let me know if there's anything going on that I'm messing up. I haven't heard him yet, so I think we're making it through okay.
He's
So-
shaking his head yes.
There we go. And when you come up, please try to keep it to 3 minutes. We try to keep it the same with everybody. And no applause, no booing. We have not had this problem in a couple of years. It's wonderful. We had days before. We want everybody to feel equally comfortable when we speak at the mic with their thoughts, their beliefs, without any pressure from anybody else. So the mic is open to the public.
Good evening. Thank you for your service, all of you. I'm Weldon Travis, living rough and ready. I'm a retired peace officer as opposed to a police officer. I'm an officer of the peace. I'm also a strict constitutionalist. And as I've listened to some of your comments here, we're not too far apart. I have a gay daughter-in-law, very, very successful. Starts small businesses and builds them up, sells them. And we love her as we would love all of our children that are raised regardless of their directions in life. With that, I'm here to speak with you about your policy flags. And I'd like to read it so I do not fail to include everything that I want to talk about. I would also like to acknowledge our national founding fathers and the military defenders who have made this possible. There are many people in countries around the world that it's not. They don't have that honor and that privilege. And so many of us have fought and died for it. I was in Marin County for 33 years and I've experienced a lot of violence, grief, sadness, dealing with all sorts of people from all stripes. Been in extreme danger on numerous occasions. All of us in the thin blue line have gone through that, stay with it. I still stay with it. I have people coming from my past. I've had 2 people from my past come to my house. And I convinced them that they were not going to do what they intended to do, or if they intended that, they would go out feet first. It's just something we have to deal with. And I accept that. I thrive on it. I get an adrenaline rush from it. Month of flying rainbow flags on Nevada city streets to celebrate gay pride and diversity. I'm all for the latter, as I've just mentioned. But California's percentage of the LGBTQ plus is a mere 5.3%. Why not fly Old Glory upside down to emphasize the sorry, sad status of California, for which lifelong, sometimes generational families are fleeing in droves to more politically conservative states. In my case, that amounts to 98 individuals moving to South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Montana, Nevada, Idaho, and Texas. Think about the many very large and medium-sized businesses that are doing the same. My 90-year-old wife, Irene, here with me today, and I have thought about it. But leaving our many friends and associates simply precludes that. We don't want to leave those people that we have learned so much from, shared so much from, are loyal to. It's too late in our lives. I'm 84, as I said, she's 90. We're not going to do that. Try renting a truck and car dolly, you'll find that the cost is astronomical. On a reverse rental of the same equipment, the cost is comparatively fractional. Just for the purpose of knowing from what I speak, I read a check on Nashville, Tennessee. It cost close to over $4,000 to rent a truck and a car dolly, which is typically the way people buy often. On the reverse, it's under $400. For continuity of your diversity efforts, maybe next month, Nevada City should fly the red, white, and black flags, each adorned with a swastika. That's ridiculous, isn't it? It's foolish. But this is what we're leaning toward. You people are awake. I'm not talking about the woke people. I want it all now. What can the government do and give to me? We're not talking about that. You're wise, educated, active, productive people. I really appreciate that. I suggest that in and for the future and for the economic health of Nevada City, carefully review all of these negative impacts. They are severe. They really are. I say this in dead earnest. I have extra copies for all of you, and I presume that PVMR and KNCO is probably live streaming it. I've already talked with Don Rogers, the publisher of the Union. He and I have a lot in common. He was a smoke jumper, did a lot of crazy, unsafe things. Get the same adrenaline rushes. He's a neighbor of ours up in Brooklyn, right?
And I don't want to cut you off, but try to wrap it up, please. We're way over our time.
Just about done. And other people have spoken at length. I appreciate the same consideration. Just about done. So I'm going to be distributing copies of this to those radio stations and to the union. Don Rogers has refused or been too uncomfortable to publish them. And I don't know whether that's lack of guts or just what he thinks that the readers do or do not want to hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. More public comment. Okay, with that, Gabby, do we have anybody potentially virtually?
No. If you would like to raise your hand, if you would like to comment on items not on the agenda, please do so. Lower right hand corner of your screen. And we have Seth Howard. Go ahead, Seth.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Seth Howard. I'm a field representative for Northern California Carpenters Union. I don't want to take up much time, but I do want to briefly tell you about some of our core values. The first one being apprenticeship. We run a state certified apprenticeship program. In my opinion, it's probably the best carpentry apprenticeship training in the country. The facility, one of our facilities, is right down the road in Fairfield. State-of-the-art training center, welding, everything you want. I believe they do 5 weeks total a year there. Another one of our big core values is insurance. All of our working members receive basically a Cadillac style medical plan with dental and vision. And basically I'm hoping that maybe sometime in the future you guys could look into like some of the kind of ordinances they have in like San Francisco County, where in certain size projects they actually require contractors to carry medical insurance, not just pay the difference in like on prevailing wage work. They just pay for the medical, and then we all know the person working is just going out spending the money on whatever, a Harley or something like that, and they're not getting health care. So anyway, I just want to introduce myself, and that's it, and have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
Okay, thank you, Seth. Next we have Matthew Coulter. Go ahead, Matthew. Matthew, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll keep it short. Yeah, thank you for your service. Dwayne, yeah, I wish we had more Dwaynes. I wish we had more everyone that would step up and even consider serving. So it'd be really interesting to see the new change with the council. But you guys definitely went through some hard times with the COVID and getting bounced around from the county and the state and everyone else. So thank you for going through that and coming out better at the end. Pretty amazing. Commercial Street looks great. Yeah, do I still get a chance to speak on number 8 by chance? Or should I speak now on that?
I believe we'll do it when we pull it. Is that correct, Dawn? Since we're going to have a discussion, we can allow public to comment at the same time that we do.
We weren't gonna pull 8, it was just gonna be comments on the consent item.
So we had number 10, but Gary said 6, 7, 8, and
Just for
9.
comment, I was.
Comments.
Well, then, you know what?
Yeah, go, Matthew.
Matthew, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure thing.
Okay, so on that subject of the old barn at the Public Works yard, I know that a lot of good lumber is there. I hope the carpenter gentleman is still listening. And reclaimed lumber is, quite the industry. And it just feels bad to crush it up and throw it away. It just seems like there's been so much of our history it's been crushed up and thrown away locally here. And it would be nice to repurpose some of it for benches or just all kinds of different things. I'm sure the community could come up with something. Some of the timbers in there are the old growth from here and still better than what you can purchase right now. So I hope you guys can consider doing something with some of that material that's still usable. Thank you.
Great idea, actually. So we'll mention that to Shane.
Yeah, if you, with your permission, Mr. Mayor, for number 8, since it is on the agenda, part of that contract includes a requirement that the contractor sort and stack reusable timber, since that mill building was made predominantly with old growth lumber. So those that are completely unusable will be thrown away, but the rest will be stacked and made available for future city projects, or worst case scenario, we'll give it away for free to the community rather than throwing it in the landfill. So
You're already in front of it. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Auction it off.
That's your city engineer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Leave it for the
Gabby,
people who come to the planning
more.
commission.
No more.
Okay, no more comments from the public. Let's close public comment. Let's move on down now to consent agenda. And so let's go ahead and before we actually go for a motion in a second, let's go ahead and discuss, start with item 6.
Yeah, let me just take 6, 7, 8, and 9, because I just wanted to comment that, there's a lot of big stuff we've been doing in our city, but cities are also made of a lot of very small things. And when it comes down to it, what our citizens want to see is the stripe down the middle of the road, and as they should. So what I wanted to do was just say thank you for paying attention to the many small details as well. I think that the stop sign and I mean, this is easy. You should have to try and warrant a stop sign sometime. We have to do the studies and everything else, but that stop sign is well needed. So my comment in general was thank you for paying attention to the many small things my public works directors have, but that's how you do it too. It's just as critical that we take care of the roads and the sidewalks, and there's a lot of that going on. And that was my comment. I think we're really on a great track. I look forward to that because it tells everybody that things are happening, not just at the big level, but all the way through. So thanks.
And you want to go ahead and jump onto 10, or is that
Yeah,
included?
no, I'll go with 10. The reason I pulled 10, I just want you all to know I will not be here that night. I have had a commitment on the calendar for many months. It is the changing of the guard. So I didn't want anybody to get any idea that I was boycotting. But I couldn't make it. I talked to Sean. I don't think there's any alternative dates, makes total sense to move it out of summer nights unless we want to hear the activities back here against the back wall in McGee's as everybody carries on. So I just want everybody to know that that's why I pulled it. Thank you.
It's just hard to get here also.
Yeah, we won't be insulted.
I also don't want to miss summer nights.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
no, I get it. Yeah, I'd be downtown anyway. So in fact, I will be.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and quickly read them for the people watching the meeting so people know what we're voting on. So our consent items, item 1, action minutes, June 1st, 2022 special meeting. Item 2, action minutes, June 8th, 2022 regular meeting. Item 3, fire activity report for May 2022. Item 4, consideration of adoption of resolution 2022-53, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City acknowledging the report of required annual inspections of occupancies pursuant to sections 13146.2 and 13146.3 of the California Health and Safety Code. Item 5, consideration of adoption of resolution 2021-44, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City making the legally required findings to continue to authorize a conduct of remote telephonic meetings during the state of emergency, COVID. Item 6, consideration of adoption of resolution 2022-54, A resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City amending vehicles and traffic regulations by establishing the intersection of Searles Avenue and Arville Way as an intersection where a stop is required in all directions of travel. Item 7, consideration of award of a contract with Traffic Limited for annual city street striping in an amount not to exceed $17,957.28, and authorize the city manager to execute any contracts or related documents. Item 8, consideration of award of a contract with PSCE to remove and dispose of the existing barn building and Nevada City Public Works yard in an amount not to exceed $23,267, and authorize the city manager to execute any contracts or related documents and make sure the old wood is stacked as appropriately already mentioned. Item 9, award the contract with PSCE in an amount not to exceed $30,630 and hardcore construction in an amount not to exceed $124,880 for phase 1 and phase 2 2022 sewer improvements at various locations. Authorize a project contingency of 10% not to exceed $15,551 and authorize the city manager to execute any contracts or related documents. Item 10, consideration of adoption of resolution 2022-55, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City approving a date change request for the regular City Council meetings in July 2022 to avoid conflict with events. Item 11, second reading and adoption of ordinance 2022-08, and ordinance approving annexation and pre-zoning of 43.5 acres within the unincorporated area of Nevada County in 2 district areas along State Highway 49 and Old Dannyville Highway. Those are, with that, I am looking for a motion.
I would say I move to approve the consent.
I second that.
Motion and second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Manette,
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fleming,
Yes.
and Mayor Strauss.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move on to public hearings. So item 12, conduct a public hearing on the city's fiscal year 2022-23 proposed annual budget. And we've got 3 or 4 different parts to it, but I'm going to open it with that.
So I think you give me 2.5 hours, 3 hours for the workshop. So I get that much tonight?
12
No?
hours.
12 hours. I can keep it as brief as your questions are, but thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on June 1st, we did that budget workshop, and you provided direction, and as well on the June 8th regular meeting, you provided direction on a master fee schedule for the city. So this is the public hearing to adopt our fiscal year 2022-23 budget. The presented budget is balanced. In other words, the revenues match expenditures. And it's what we would refer to as balanced better, in that we've allocated funds to all of our reserve accounts. Previously had 3, and they were changed to 6 in the last budget that was adopted in January with Joan's help. And we've allocated funds to all of those reserve accounts, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The total general fund budget for the proposed budget is $5,949,765 with a matching amount of revenues. Since we proposed that draft budget on the 1st, there was one change to expenses. That's $392,439. That represents the increased expense related to employment costs across the boards, including the costs of the MOUs that are in front of you this evening. That is in line with what we presented in the draft budget, but we didn't have hard numbers. We just had plugs of actual numbers. Similarly, there was a change in revenues. It's a transfer in amount of $226,668 from Measure C. That just represents the moving of the money to the unreimbursed cost of police and fire expenses from the fiscal budget. On the go forward, you won't see that because those are really within the same fund, so we'll allocate it differently in the budget, make it a little more transparent and not so confusing to have to redo the whole budget and then find the Measure C part, and then some of that goes into police and fire, but not all of it. But for right now, that's the kind of the format. So, and then since the agenda was published last Friday, there's been 2 updates to fund balance. One is Fund 210, which is our gas tax, just to reflect the $375,000 transaction that has occurred in that account. And then the other is Fund 209, which is the Highway Bridge project. And it reflects that the revenue booked is $2,655,900, not $3 million. That $3 million is the total project budget that's been carried over year. This is for a potential future bridge project, but the state only pays a certain percentage of the project, so the 3 million should actually be the 2,655,900. Ultimately, that's not something that we're expending right now. It's a future project, so we're just trying to reflect the accurate, not general fund money. It doesn't impact the budget. We haven't changed any of the allocations to the general fund reserves since we talked at the budget workshop. So we have a total of 50% of our operating budget allocated to the 6 reserve accounts, including our investments. We also haven't included the $777,443 of American Rescue Plan Act money, or referred to as ARPA funds. So we intend to allocate those that are coming out of the strategic planning process through a budget amendment. That money is also not recognized in the budget as revenue. So when we get to that point, we'll recognize it as revenue and authorize the expenditure, or you will, by council action. There's also no change to our capital improvement program. That was just adopted in January. Things are underway. Staff is out there working hard. We do intend to update that after the strategic plan, because we anticipate that there may be some room in the budget and or from the ARPA money or through grant opportunities that are coming up. Right. So the actions before you tonight, the resolution 2022-46 adopts the fiscal year budget. 2022-47 adopts the classification and compensation plan, which includes the raises contemplated just before you this evening. Resolution 2022-48 adopts the master fee schedule for those items that can be changed now. And as we discussed, there are many items that can't be changed now, but that'll be work in progress throughout the year. And then resolution 2022-49 adopts the appropriations limit, commonly referred to as the GAN limit. This is required under California law, and it's among the strangest little intricate things that we do that they're usually just put in there and nobody really knows what they mean, but say we're compliant. So I try to boil it down to it is not actually more complicated than it needs to be. Our appropriations limit this year is $5,768,809.28. It is a calculation based on our previous year's expenditure limit, and we use the state's Department of Treasury information based on our population growth, as well as a couple of other factors. It goes into a spreadsheet, it spits out that number, but that number doesn't really mean anything. What really means something is that the difference between our actual budget expenses after deductions and what that number is. So our taxes, essentially all of our taxes, sales tax, property tax, TOT, and cannabis tax, are subject to that limit. So that's $3,951,400. And then we're allowed to deduct our expenses for Social Security, capital, and debt services, which is $798,217. So after our deductions and the appropriations that are subject to that, that's $3,153,183. So a lot of math. But the big thing is our appropriations limit is $5,768,809. What we're actually doing when you do the math is $3,153,183, which means we're $2,615,626 underneath the cap, and that's commonly referred to as the leak rate. So you are nowhere near going over what is allowed for you to spend in this budget, and unless somehow we found $2.6 million in gold balloons in the safe, which I'm looking for every day, then we're not at any risk of exceeding that limit. With that, we'd recommend you conduct the public hearing, adopt the 4 resolutions, and of course, staff is here to answer any questions you have.
So before I go for a motion, anybody on council have any questions? Before we've already dealt with it. Okay, open it up to the public. Does anybody have any comments on this topic? Open the public hearing. Yeah.
Public hearing's over.
Yeah. Anybody would like to speak on this topic? Come on up to the mic. Anybody virtually?
If you'd like to speak on this topic, please raise your hand lower right hand corner or star 9 on your phone.
Okay. Sean and or Keith, would you like me to read this as a whole for one vote, one motion? Or do we need to break it down? You already specified, but.
Yeah, not an ordinance, it's just the
Yeah.
adoption of the resolution, so don't need to read it into the record any further, just the motion and second would be to approve the action as written.
Okay, looking for a motion in a second for these
So
4
moved.
items.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Manette,
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fleming,
Yes.
and Mayor Strouser.
Yes, thank you. Okay,
That was a thing.
Thank you, council.
yeah,
It was, and
We
Sean
just did
did
a thing.
You did. Awesome.
Victoria.
Victoria.
Victoria,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
You never know, I turn into a budget fanboy.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Jerry, did you just say fanboy?
we're going to move on to business item 13. That's also in 3 different sections. Consideration of adoption of resolution 2022-50, resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City approving and adopting the comprehensive memorandum of understanding, or MOU, with the Nevada City Police Officers Association for the term of July 1, 22 through June 30th, 25. And consideration of adoption of resolution 2022-51, resolution of the City Council of the City of Nevada City approving and adopting the comprehensive memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the Nevada City management and supervisory employees with a term of July 1, 22 through 25. Then resolution 2022-52 is the same thing, but with the Nevada City Miscellaneous Employees Association, also July 1, 22 through June 30th, 25. And finally, actually, no, that's it for number 13, those 3.
That's it. So in this last meeting, we're getting our money's worth out of the mayor with this agenda. So sorry for all the extra words, but I could have done those 3 individual items and then you'd have to read all those too. So, the memorandums of understanding or MOUs for all of the city bargaining units are set to expire on June 30th. So we have to complete the negotiations with the bargaining units. And really this was first steps, not the completed process, but first steps for us to continually be looking for ways to ensure that we can recruit, retain, develop, promote, the best and the brightest for Nevada City. So, what we're looking for is a little bit different than what other places are looking for. Usually here you have to wear a lot more hats than you might wear somewhere else. And, historically, it's been a challenge to pay our folks competitive wages. And while we do well compared to our comparable agencies, being places like Colusa or Jackson or Colfax, we have not done as well when we're talking about our competitors, people that steal our employees because they pay more benefits. So I think this is a good first step, and I appreciate the council's deliberation and consideration of advancing that as a philosophical perspective of what we're trying to do with our employees. So there's several items that we standardize across the MOUs. There are 3-year contracts for all of them. They all involve a base salary raise this July of 6%, next July of 4%, the following July of 4%. There's a standardization of license and certification pay for our non-safety personnel. There's a standardization of education incentives across the board, adding a master's degree incentive. And while that might sound self-serving, I'm not in any of those MOUs, but you also have several other employees that you might not think of that have master's degrees, including our chief financial officer and several of our employees that work in the police department. So I think that's encouraging. And we also change our, in the non-safety groups, change our tuition reimbursement to a pooled amount so that if some employees aren't using their amount in any given year, other employees might have an opportunity to use those funds so they can further their education and bring that, knowledge and ability right back here to Nevada City, and we'll put it to good use. We also have reopeners across the board for health, dental, and vision insurance coverage. Believe that if we change plans, we could offer additional plans with greater benefit at no additional cost to our employees. So it's definitely something worth exploring. And we wrote it that way to indicate that I'm not looking for a reopener to take money out of their paychecks to pay for benefits, but to increase their benefits without taking money out of their paychecks. The management and miscellaneous groups also had some specific items related to uniform adjustments, boot reimbursement and increased cell phone allowance. The Police Officer Association had a specific item for the basic post incentive of 4%. And that really is built into the process of trying to be able to recruit both experienced officers and retain brand new officers. So it is somewhat of a lateral incentive for those that have already been through an academy and served their time somewhere else as a police officer. They'll come in the door with that incentive. And for those that don't have that and are coming to us brand new out of the academy, it's always good to have a balance. Those folks, the day they get on probation, will be eligible to get that incentive. So it's a reason to come to Nevada City and stay in Nevada City. So that's it's a good tool. It's not as much as we need to, it's just, like I said, this is first steps, but it's a step in the right direction. And then lastly, in the police department, one that's notable is that we previously had a 6th pay step within the Police Officer Association, and that's been eliminated. And the money related to it has been put into the longevity pay item, which was the original intention in the first place. And that makes it far less complicated for us to publish a classification confiscation schedule. Ultimately, the total estimated increased cost of salaries and benefits under all of the contracts in fiscal year 2022-23 for these 3, this doesn't include our non-represented contract employees, our part-time employees, is $317,500, and it is already accounted for in the budget that you saw. I appreciate the hard work of our employee groups getting here. We had everything from the Police Officers Association that has 2 sergeants that this is not their first or 10th rodeo in dealing with negotiations, and to your management unit, which has been relatively stable and has had the same negotiating person, to your miscellaneous group, which has none of its previous folks from negotiations. And so they had to learn not only how to deal with a new city manager, but how to deal with negotiations. And I applaud them for both their willingness to learn and their efforts in trying to make as good a contract as possible for their members. So several of them are with us in the audience tonight, and the council would like, I'm sure they would love to come up and either say thank you to you and trash talk me, or the inverse, whatever works. But with that, I would appreciate you approving all 3 of them.
Anybody from council on 13, A, B, or C before I go to the public?
Yeah, comment.
Yep.
Yeah. I was talking earlier about how much change has happened in the city, and staff was there too. I know it's not enough. I bought gas today, so I know it's not. How do any of us keep up? But this is the best we can do right now with what we got. And it was unwavering support on the part of the council to do everything we could to try and bring alignment. We know where we are with this. We know where we need to go. As Sean said, it's the first good step. And I think it's really important that we, previously, I'm not sure if we could even gotten it done. I saw some of the timeline, but we're here. We're trying. This is substantial. It's never going to be enough, but it's a great first step in trying to realign a lot of the work that has been done with the salaries.
Doug?
No, I'm good. We kind of hashed this out last time, but I think Gary summed it all up.
I just, for me, this is like kind of an honor to vote on this tonight, because the changes that we all have done in the last 3 years with this council has led to a number of things that are being voted on tonight. And I want to thank all the council, but also the employees who stuck it out with us. And Sean, it's wonderful. And I would say to Joan, if she was here, that we've had guidance on how to fix things in the city. And I know from the employees, and I've heard from many of you saying thank you to the council for, acknowledging who they are and what they do for the city. Because honestly, we just vote. It's all of our employees who do the work. And thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. It took us so long. We had to get in here and realize that things needed to be shifted and changed. And I'm happy to be a part of this vote tonight, for sure.
Thank you. Open it up to the public. Would anybody here in the room tonight like to speak on this topic?
I'm Jim Ewing, president of the Nevada City Police Officers Association. I've been with the city going on 17 years, by far the best contractor we've ever had. And I don't think councils prior to you were like out to get us or anything like that. I just don't think there was any real leadership or direction for a long time that got us to a point where we could move forward in a productive way. And I think it's amazing to me to see it. I think it's awful that we had to lose 50% of our staffing to get here. But sometimes that's what it takes to open your eyes, right? So I think we're in a good spot, and I think the city's going to be in a phenomenal spot moving forward. The team and attract very well qualified people. And that's what we really want. So thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Just on behalf of I'm Amy Wilson, and on behalf of the management and supervisory employees, I just want to thank you for considering this item. And I do think there are some really positive updates to this MOU that will help us recruit and retain good employees. So thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Amy.
And as part of that same marketing, for all you do.
And Amy, once you took your mask off, I realized it was you.
Hi, my name is Brandon Pierce, one of the representatives for the miscellaneous unit. I previously worked here years ago in the public works side and left to pursue other opportunities. And I landed back here again in operations. And I got to say, with this negotiation, is probably the best one I've seen. I appreciate the support. I really enjoyed working with Sean on it. And I look forward to working with the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We're doing stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
This feels very productive.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I'm in Public Works. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well, come on up, Mike.
No pressure.
Really was compelled to come up and speak. My name is Mike. I'm the superintendent of the water and wastewater treatment plant here for Nevada City. And I think on behalf of our guys here, the work that they do, I just want to thank you all. And you guys are going to be missed terribly. So Dwayne and Aaron, so thank you for your service here. And we welcome in the new council members. Look forward to their support too. But what we do out in water and wastewater and all the projects that are completed to further enhance the efficiency of the plants. So we're real grateful for this. All you and the work you put into it. Thank you, Sean. So thank you guys for it.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks.
Anybody virtually?
We do. We do have Brittany. Go ahead and speak, Brittany.
Is it that Brittany?
It's our Brittany.
Can you unmute Brittany?
Working. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, guys. First of all, I'd like to say I'm sorry that I couldn't be there tonight. I had some family stuff I needed to attend to. So I'm really appreciative of the Zoom platform. I'd like to express our gratitude for your guys' consideration on behalf of the miscellaneous unit for this MOU agreement that we are discussing tonight. Times have been challenging over the past couple of years with COVID, and as many of our members have remained during this time, others of us have come more recently, and today we really work diligently to be a team of cohesion, and we're appreciative of some much needed changes that were put on hold due to the uncertainty of the world. So thank you very much for your guys' consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for
Brittany.
sticking it out with everybody else.
Yep.
Anybody else?
If you'd like to speak on this topic, please raise your hand, lower right-hand corner.
Going to close public comment. So I think I'm going to ask for a resolution to adopt, ask for a motion to adopt resolution 2022 50, 51, and 52 as read.
Oh, I so move.
Second with
Motion and 2.5. Okay, with that roll call, please.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Burnett.
Absolutely, with pleasure.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fleming.
Yes.
And Mayor Strauss.
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 14, consideration of authorizing the city manager to authorizing the city manager to develop and implement an interim sidewalk dining and retail permitting process and a trial Ballard Street closure schedule for Commercial Street through September 30, 2022. And we do apologize for any discomfort that any of our merchants had when the street was paved last week. I know that one or two merchants tried to put tables out and were told they couldn't, and there's a reason for that. We're going to do it right. Sorry about that, but we're going to fix that tonight.
So thank you for that. I have the next to last item. Amy will come up and clean up after this. So I don't say all the words tonight. I apologize for all the extra words on the agenda and spoken, but I really do appreciate everything we're doing tonight. I think they're all exciting items. This is, the construction project's nearing its end, and we had on June 14th, we had a planning commission workshop down in Robinson Plaza on the topic of outdoor dining in the right of way, both sidewalks and parklets or in parking spaces. Really looking towards that permanent ordinance, which will come in place at the end of September. And a lot of the comments were about the need for temporary use specific to Commercial Street, realizing that some of those folks had permits for dining in parking spaces that no longer exist in that environment, and we now have these big wide sidewalks with nothing on them and no actual process to allow them to be there, right? So 2020 hindsight, but I'm glad that it came about this way, because now we will have the opportunity to do an interim process. We'll do it right, but it won't be perfect, and that's okay. So we'll see some things where we say, wow, we really like that. Let's put it in the permanent ordinance. And I'm guessing we'll see one or two things that we say, wow, we really don't like that. Let's not put it in the permanent ordinance. And that's okay too. And then also this will give us the opportunity to, if you approve this, to get the outdoor dining, the seating, that kind of thing out there and in front of the businesses and working before we have the landscape architect come back and do a planning commission workshop where we talk about greenery and things like that along that street. I think it will add to that process to better visualize what the street will look like with the dining, things like that. On Monday, I did a listening session with primarily business owners that are impacted on Commercial Street, but other interested parties as well here in the chambers. And there was, a lot of issues, a lot of concerns, but I would say relatively strong consensus to move forward with a temporary solution that allows some of these activities to continue while they work on the permanent ordinance. And so what I'm asking for you tonight is to give me the opportunity to work with staff and the businesses to create this interim policy until we have the permanent ordinance. And essentially it would mirror what we've done with the activities in the parking spots. So folks would have to apply for no fee application. They'd have to have the appropriate insurance. They'd have to document the activities. This would only apply to Commercial Street in the new section. The permits would be only for the areas in front of their businesses, but with the permission of their adjoining business partners, they could use some of that space, which was allowed in the parking spots as well. Commercial Street itself would not be authorized for use. We're only talking about the sidewalk. That does need to stay open for emergency vehicle access. A little bit different in that when you have permitted special events and we have street closures, we do allow a variance there, but for routine activities, these permits would not allow use of the street itself. So we'd be keeping a clear path of travel of more than 4 feet. We were looking for something like 5 feet. 4 feet is the minimum. And so if we said 4 feet exactly, and then we're, a yard's width taking up, then we could run into to problems, both legally and practically for access and egress for, those that like to visit Commercial Street. But we certainly are trying to optimize the use to everyone's benefit. So it definitely has to be more than 4 feet, but we'll work through that. We would like to have the tables, chairs, umbrellas, racks, signage be standardized in some fashion. That doesn't mean identical, doesn't mean carbon copies, but something that was going to be reasonable for the interim. And permit holders be responsible for removing all of these items when their businesses not in business. Although one thing that may potentially stay is that they're leave. So that would include, dining tables, things like that, because they have to be bussed. If there ends up being, large or heavier seating, let's say bench seating up against a business or something like that, it's a big concrete bill. We're not going to move it inside, but something that we would work through in this interim process. They'd also be responsible for cleaning the area, just like is supposed to be done in the street, in the parking spots. This will be much more visible though, because you won't have these planter barriers around it. This, people are going to be coming up and down Commercial Street like they do today, experiencing and enjoying the businesses that are there. Businesses that will come as we, show that it's open for business. We still have a couple open storefronts there. And then additionally, I would like you to consider giving me the authorization to create a trial for the raising of the bollards on the street there. And that would give us an opportunity to do something and see if it works, and work with the business owners, work with the community to see how having the bollards up for a period of time or a day or a weekend or whatever it may be beneficial or may be harmful, and we can evaluate that as we go instead of having a hard rule today. You would authorize me to create something and evaluate it with feedback, and then we can adapt it throughout the trial period until we get to the permanent ordinance adoption. And at that point, we would come back to you and ask that the council, opine on what's the best permanent solution for those bollards. And so really just tonight looking for your authorization to make something work for those businesses that have been patiently waiting and quietly to honestly, I met with a number of the businesses after the workshop, and I've met with several of them before, and they're nice and they're respectful, and they're sometimes requesting things that I can't accomplish, but I appreciate that they didn't come in pounding their fists and saying you must do this, but came on Monday willing to try something to see if it would work, so that we get a good sense of what really should be happening out there on a permanent basis, knowing that ultimately the council will have an opportunity to make a decision on the permanent solution out there, and it may not look exactly like what all the businesses want, but it will be what's right for the city. So looking for that direction tonight. I know there's people in the audience that are here on the topic and may like to speak, so I will leave it there.
Okay. Before we go out, anybody at the council table would like to comment?
Yeah, I will. So important things to understand here. It's continue the theme of talking about how much we've changed. The chamber has changed a lot too. I mean, the chamber has been revitalized, almost nearly reconstituted. So the relationship, I think of it as a three-legged stool, because the chamber is often representative of the business. And although absolutely, make no mistake, our businesses are fully capable of speaking on their own behalf, but they also work with the chamber and successfully. So the chamber, was in there. Planning staff held a workshop, nicely done, Amy, and it became evident quickly that wow, what are we going to do for the summer? Because the schedule of what we were looking at, and that's something that we changed. The request came, and this is all about process. The request came, I heard. We talked to Sean got it. We immediately said, talk to the mayor, talk to Dwayne. Dwayne talked to we got this on the agenda tonight. And the point is, and then Sean listened. And I mean, he really listened. I said after that meeting that I was trying to imagine a time when a city manager sat in this room and listened to businesses like that. And I couldn't imagine that ever having happened before. Maybe it did, But
Not in recent years.
not in recent years, but it was happening. So the relationships are there. We do not have to fight our way through these things. We can work together. We're proving that. We're demonstrating it every day. And this is what we need to do. We're all in this together. But I really appreciate Sean's leadership in this. I know Amy's working to figure out how to engage the community in her own way. And these are all things that we need to do. So I think the process, even though we danced really quickly, we danced. And this says a lot about our ability to go forward. We respect our businesses. We know we're partnered in this, and we've got to all succeed. So and listening to Sean, I know he gets it. I have to say the businesses were most kind about how much they felt heard by him. And Chief Steck is back here. They really like you, Chief. They really like you. They're happy to see you. They talk about that a lot. So we're headed in the right direction on all of this. That's my point. So thank you, and please go forth and figure it out. And I also think it's a great opportunity to figure it out together and learn from it, so that when we make a final decision, it'll be good collaborative. Thank you. Aaron?
Well, actually, I have a couple questions for Sean, because I was unable to make that meeting because I've had a family issue come up. So I'm just curious, because we've had it change so differently through all the construction and what the community want and what the businesses want, and, the different groups. So at that meeting, can you just give me a little insight of where we are right now with the businesses and what they want to have happen on that street?
So from the businesses that are restaurant based, the desire for on sidewalk dining, they're not here tonight, but so I don't want to speak out of turn, but Three Forks represented at the meeting that they would not be doing something because they need to reconcile their alcohol license for the location there, but we want
In
to
the
build,
interim.
yes, but we want to build something that if they change their mind before the permanent ordinance comes in place, we can still work with them. And that's part of the permanent ordinance as well, is how would we accommodate those? They have to be permanent barriers, but they're temporary barriers that move, but they're called permanent, so they have site control of those locations. So, and several of the other restaurants have alcohol ABC permits on Commercial Street as well. So that's the outdoor dining part. There's also a desire for outdoor seating, just like bench seating or that kind of thing. There's a desire for outdoor retail or a rack. That I would say was not universal, but was highly desired by most of the businesses. And then the sandwich boards for mostly for indicating that a store is open.
Oh, okay.
So as you look up Commercial Street from the bottom or from the top if you're at Pine Street and you look down, it is hard to distinguish sometimes that some of the businesses are open just with the signs that are overhead, because it's the same sign whether they're there or not.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the windows you can't see,
Right.
in kind of thing. And sandwich boards, those A-frames are not permitted under our ordinances. And I will note that the painting that is in my office, if anybody hasn't seen it, it's an amazing painting. It's of 1920 downtown, basically a view from my office, and there's an A-frame sign in front of one of the businesses.
Yeah.
But
Things have changed.
it's a Thomas Kincaid original. It's not truth, but it is based on pictures that we have that have that same A-frame sign over there. So, and there was also ideas brought up about maybe a flag, an open flag that could be from the door. So all things that could potentially be addressed in the permanent ordinance, and this would be an opportunity to be a proving ground for those things. And it may be that we do all those things and we say, hey, this, but not this, but not this. Or we love it, but now we have to standardize it. There's opportunity here to make it right for the whole city based on this little kind of subset there. But I would say those are basically at the outdoor dining, outdoor seating, retail in rack, so a rack in front of the business, so to speak, and then an A-frame or sign generally to indicate that the places.
Can I add one thing to that? It was my understanding that the A-frames were particularly for the week and not the weekend, because the weekend, theoretically, let's say, there's a lot of traffic, foot traffic. And so you walk by and you see the stores open, but it was more of like to get that car traffic during the week to bring people in when the street is not as busy.
What about the bollards? I mean, we had originally, when we approved all the changes, it was put out that we could close for the weekend. Do businesses still want that, or was there any?
Yeah, there was, I would say, universal consensus that there should be a period of time when the bollards are up and the street is closed for a variety of reasons, everything from safety for children going across. We do have 2 crosswalk segments in that narrow piece. You know, I think if you've been down there, and I know all of you have, people are used to this going across the street, right? And so, you know, something like, we do need to keep it open during court hours. And we certainly want to be sensitive to traffic circulation in this town isn't great in the first place. And anytime you take one of our segments out of the mix, I can tell you what happens, because I look out my office onto York Street. Anytime you mess with any of the segments, people start driving the wrong way on York and down the wrong way on Commercial, because they don't know how to get around just with one segment. And so that's a problem we need to address globally. But you know, it is something that pertains to Commercial Street. But let's say hypothetically we did something like close it at 8 o'clock at night on Friday and open it when Public Works comes to work at 5 in the morning on Monday morning. Something like that as part of a trial would be was supported in the business.
I was just wondering if they still, you know, because those views change so much in the process because the street's been closed for so long. I mean, though I did see things were closed again tonight. It's funny because you're right. The other day, I go, which way does York Street go? I always forget, you know, and it's like literally that day I really want to turn the wrong way. So, you know.
I found myself at the intersection of Commercial and York with a car coming down the hill on Commercial and one making the wrong way turn.
You know, just move slowly, people. We'll get, right, we'll get through it.
That's why I walk in the businesses.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Danielle, any other?
No, I'd like to hear from the public. I'm good.
Yeah, just really quickly, the bollards. So I think that, you know, I love the schedule for closing. I was just thinking that, you know, people, I guess they don't come early to deliver stuff on Mondays, you know.
Not
before 6 a.m., not before Public Works guys are there. So, yeah.
Yeah, because the bars are not open to, you know, receive the items.
Yeah.
And we don't have an ordinance that prohibits them from delivering that sort of thing.
Well,
but we would want to pay attention to that and work with the business owners to make sure when their deliveries are and not.
Sure. And, you know, just because the retail businesses get sort of, you know, a little bit shortchanged in this whole process, I just hope that we can always work to give them some love on the street, you know, whether it's the racks. I know the racks, you know, aesthetically are not going to look good. So I don't know what the solution is, but I hope we can find one for you as well.
Okay, I'll speak later with that. Let's go ahead and open it up to the public. Would anybody like to speak on this topic?
Good evening, Mariah.
Hi, I'm Mariah. I own Two Little Birds. I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much. I am amazed. I mean, it's really inspiring how much you're really hearing us. It's from all of you, but after the meeting, it feels really good as a business owner. It's a little scary to first hear that it couldn't use the sidewalk. And since then, I agree. You had said something on the Monday meeting about it not being a fight, and it really doesn't feel like that right now. It really does feel like a collaboration, which I didn't feel after that Friday note, and I totally do now. And I'm really grateful to be part of this community. It's really exciting. Our business, Two Little Birds, we love having the street closed during the weekend. That's great. Our delivery people will be really happy to deliver during the week when it's open. But the reason it works for us to have it closed is because it works for the restaurants. You know, it works for everybody. It's just the energy is bustling. People are there hanging out. That's good for us. I do think that we are definitely advocating for our sidewalk sign every day. We're challenged with our window, especially. And so even on the weekend, I do want to show like people who are dining outside of that. Hopefully that happens for Hartwood, Three-Forks, so they can see that we're open. Come check us out. Because the hours have been so crazy with this closure. A lot of our customers don't know that we're open, what our hours are. So right now, especially like in this, and it feels really important to make sure our sign is there and our rack is there, so you know what we have, like what we're offering. I don't know if you got my email, Sean, but immediately after the meeting Monday, I was able to swap out the rack, which was really ugly. I'm sorry for that. It was just this in between. It's now like a very small iron rack. It's very heavy, so I'm gonna try and find a lighter version. But it's small, it's compact, it's right up against the building. And then I also found that we were able to put our sidewalk sign in a spot that is 5 feet from the curb, but also still out, which is something that had come up in the meeting. So it actually worked really well. There's still visibility, you still have the space, and there's no zigzag. So I just want to let you know that we listened to that, we found a solution, and we feel really good about it. So I sent a picture. Hopefully, but thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Anybody else on this topic? Anybody virtually?
We do, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand in the lower right-hand corner. I think we have Matthew Coulter. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yes, I hope that you don't clutter up the sidewalk with sandwich boards. They're kind of trip hazards, and male dogs seem to like to pee on them for some reason. But the trip hazard is what I'm worried about, and then just basically turning the sidewalks into obstacle courses after putting in nice wide sidewalks and then filling them up with different things. Because when the area is full of people, it's amazing how it seems a lot smaller when it's full of people. And I think with other things placed on the sidewalks, it'll be noticeable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Like to speak, please raise your hand in the lower right-hand corner. We do not.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the table. So my few comments are last week. So we know when certain areas are blocked off, our police department is professional, but they're not large. They can't be here 24/7 in that location. They cover a wide path, so enforcement can be tough. Going back to the boardwalk, it was actually a great addition to the town, except you get one person sitting down there smoking their joint, their cigarette, even though we're non-smoking town, and it would blow the whole experience for everybody else. Nobody would sit there, it would wipe it out. So I hope that we find a way in the wording that when we arrange for the tables and chairs to come out for the restaurants and the other merchants, they are for the merchants. They are not for some of the aspects of our community that will sit there all day, smoke a cigarette illegally. We have to find a way that we dedicate these to the merchants for the merchants' use, or to a tourist to sit down and rest, but not to that element that will take advantage of it. And I say that because last week, my daughter's wedding was Saturday. We had a lot of people in from all over the country, and we took them downtown. We went down one night with the whole group down to Treats, and it was a couple of nights after the chamber dinner, which thanks again, Aaron, for letting us experience that. And sure enough, we had 4 people sitting out there with a blanket unrolled, trying to sell their own homemade jewelry. They don't have a business permit. 2 of our merchants came out, caught me, Mr. Mayor, pointing at them. They were smoking joints, sitting, taking up the dead space inside the bollards. So when events are happening, when we have things going on the weekend, when it's busy, when people are bustling, that's wonderful because it's busy. They're not going to take advantage of that. But if we close it off a lot on non-event days, this is going to happen. It's happened forever. There are plenty of other places they can sit in Callanan. We just can't have that element in front of our nice merchants, storefronts, and the restaurants, storefronts, doing the things that they do. And again, we can't just call the police and expect them to be down there in a heartbeat. It's not going to happen. They have other more important things and more dangerous, serious things to take care of. So let's find a way that we word it in a way that people can't sit there and take up the space as a vagrancy type action when it is closed for the public to use in a wonderful way. The other thing that I've seen in many communities, both here as well as Europe, when we have a sidewalk that is inhabited with multiple merchants, and we're talking about the alcohol situation with Three Forks, Sushi Q, we've got Saki, everybody, Cal's. There is a way with ABC that I've seen where they can section off, and not section it off, it's almost like the theater, small little poles that come out with a strap that you can, where we can section off the entire sidewalk. It doesn't block it, it keeps it open, so that alcohol can be brought up by all of the merchants that serve alcohol in that zone. So there's not, Three Forks doesn't have to segregate 2 little tables, and Heartwood doesn't have to segregate 2 little tables, and Cal and Sushi Q. So there might be a way we can work with ABC, so those that serve alcohol anywhere on the new sidewalks that have been widened can come out with a glass of wine, a glass of beer, whatever it might be. And then those get taken down, taken in. It's only for business hours for those that are serving alcohol with the appropriate license. So just a thought, I've seen that done successfully. It's going to be a nightmare trying to provide just the alcohol merchants with a little area that's cordoned off for 1 or 2 of our tables that hopefully will be out there. And with that, I will shut up. Thank you.
Yeah, and what I love about this, I hear you, Sean, that we didn't have anything in place, and then we're like, oh crap, we have to put something in place. That was my Adam Klein impression. Did you hear that?
Just like it.
Didn't it?
It did.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Put something in place. I really love this model of that we get to test it. That it's a test run, that it's a trial run, that we can tweak it, that we, we're having this trial run, and then based on what it looks like, we can add those soft elements as needed, the benches, the planters, as opposed to having them in a fixed area that was already established that becomes, like Matthew Coulter said, like a walking hazard. Something that Sean really talked about that I don't know was mentioned yet was, and speaking to what Matthew said was the line of traffic, like walking. The idea is not that it's going to be a zigzag experience when pedestrians are walking through, but that there will be a clear line of traffic. Either dining and racks will be up against the building or not up or towards the road. And so that's all part of what Sean will be figuring out with the permanent ordinance. And then to what you said, Dwayne, I totally hear you about the people taking up space on Commercial Street. And I think that's happening now because it's closed all the time. But I think on the weekends, it's so full on the weekends that I don't know that that's going to happen. But as long as we keep it open on the weeks, during the week, that should be fine.
It's enforcement like anything else. We just can't burden our PD with that daily like we used to with the boardwalk. So we're hoping that the community, the merchants will speak up and speak up loudly to us and to the PD, and will enforce so that you have good elements shopping, in that space and doing the right thing. That's why we did this. So, and then just to quell the rumor too, that was in the Union the other day and the hits and misses. So on the baller topic, we have not closed Commercial Street permanently as a walking space. So people are starting to say, wow, Nevada City did exactly what Grass Valley did with Mill Street. That's not what we've done. We have an operational, functional street that will be closed as appropriately decided by future councils and the merchants for street fairs for the right time for people to congregate safely. Commercial Street is an open, usable street and will be. So please,
we'll just say what we did is better.
Yeah. We'll clear that up with the union, since, they can't fact check everything somebody prints in an article, unfortunately. So, but we've had several calls now, people saying, demanding that we not close it permanently. We have not closed it permanently. So just be aware of that. So with that stated, if we don't have any more comments from council.
Only thing I want to say is I really love that we are working with the community on this, and I really would like to say having the community felt heard with the merchants and stuff, because this was such a process, and there's still people out there going, but I have to tell you, walking up Commercial Street, that I can actually walk up Commercial Street on the sidewalk is amazing, because for years you had to walk in the street to get up Commercial Street, and because there was never any room, and it's beautiful. I think we've done a really nice job in a place that didn't change anything, didn't change our historical presence. It just cleaned it up, and it just makes it's a beautiful street right now. So
are we, just real quick in terms of direction, Sean, I don't know that we've been clear as a council. Are we all open to the trial of Friday evening, lifting the bollards and down on Monday?
Have you decided that, or?
So I was just giving you an example of something that I was,
Yeah.
something that, is kind of in the realm of what it would be. My recommendation is that you let us create something, implement it, and then make adjustments if necessary. But
Sure.
you know, if there's a legitimate urgent concern, we could change, you know, in a minute. If there's not, we'll let things run for a while and see how it goes. Work with the chamber, work with the business owners, get the feedback, and then if needed, make incremental changes throughout the trial period.
Great.
But if you want to give me black and white direction, I'm happy to
I
take that. as
prefer to
well.
leave it open. I
Yeah.
think we need to be as flexible as possible.
I support the work in progress idea.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. Yeah, we can't decide that. We don't even know what's gonna happen yet. Right. So with that stated, then this does not look like a motion and a vote. We're just giving direction.
Well,
Right.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, you're giving me the authority to implement it. I can do that. We're not creating an ordinance, we're not creating a
Right.
resolution. We're just, you know, piggybacking on something that we've already done. We'll report back to you, you know, on, you know, how's this going? And I'm sure quite certain that the chamber and the merchants and the community members will report back to you as well on how much they like it or don't like it. And then we'll go from there. But of course, it's always your purview. If for some reason something's not working out, always
Well,
bring it back to the
I think it's so great to work with, make changes where we need to make them, try it, you know, and figure out what's gonna work and what's not gonna work.
So just briefly, there's when designing campuses and stuff like this, there's a concept of line of design. It's called this, where they build the buildings and then let people loose and see which way they walk and then put the sidewalks in, rather than saying you're gonna walk this way or this way or this way. What we're talking about here is putting something in place and using a similar concept that once it's in place and it's tested, then we will know where the amenities need to go. Because it will become clear and obvious, and it's an emergent design process. So I think it totally makes sense. I think it's a great opportunity and a great.
I think it is too.
And I think what you originally described, that, what is that called, that method?
Lines of designer, yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's what we've done with commercial
Yeah,
street
that's
for
what-
years, right? Like, it's like, oh, the desire is there, let's do this project. Yeah.
Yeah, so does that make sense?
Yep, I'll take the direction and we'll make it happen. I think Amy has to go to, I believe it's her sister's wedding coming up. So she, yes, her twin sister's right, and she's sitting next to the other twin, which always just something about that amazing. So I will be working on this to get something, and then I'll need her help on Monday. But I expect probably by Monday or Tuesday we can be going to the businesses and working to get them to fill out paperwork to issue the permits and start something.
That's
And
awesome.
down from there.
Yeah.
That's responsible.
This council gets that. Yeah, I know Grass Valley is crazy already. Mill Street, some of the merchants that were the most supportive of shutting down Mill Street a year and a half ago are already starting to vocally oppose it right as they're getting ready to drop 4 million on it because it's not panning out.
Nobody's down there. Track your history of cities that have opened and closed major streets.
And they reopen 4 years later.
Periodic.
Yes. So keep it flexible. That's really the.
I know,
the
that's
message.
kind of what I like about what we've done with commercial streets. We really can keep it flexible. And, because things change over time.
Okay, good job.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to last item, item 15.
Speaking of Amy.
Consideration of adoption of the Nevada City Street Sign Replacement Design Program. I never thought I would be speaking.
It's like cleaning up the little things, right?
This is a lot of stuff, right?
It is a lot of stuff, but dang.
Way to wrap it up.
All right, sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. As part of an update to Council at their November 18th, 2020 and May 25th, 2022 meetings, the Nevada City Fire Safety Advisory Committee recommended that the city replace the existing Wood Street signs with signs in a more durable material. The Public Works Department has also advised of the urgent need to replace several existing signs due to their deteriorated state. The Planning Commission made a recommendation for several design elements at their June 16th meeting. And those included a white background color, a black font color, a black border around the font, a sans serif font style in all capital letters, whereby directional notations like north, south, east, west would be abbreviated, and street categories like avenue and street and road are abbreviated and depicted in a smaller font size. They feature a fluted sleeve in satin black, so somewhere between glossy and matte, to be applied to the breakaway signposts in the historic district, And signposts outside the historic district would be the standard breakaway post, but in a powder coated, also satin black in color. Sign would not feature any graphics, and then they were interested in a decorative finial post op, but Shane was at the planning commission meeting and he advised that we kind of see what we have and see what's practical and available before we make a decision on those. So that could come back to the planning commission and council if we're interested in doing that. And I did run a mock-up of what I think.
This is gonna be interesting.
I know.
See it on here?
I'm trying to pull it up. Oh, there it is.
No, she didn't put it in there.
Okay, here we go.
No, sorry,
Oh, yeah.
I had to turn around the staff report, and then I did share this with,
I'm serious. This is big.
I shared the mock-up with Chair Nye, and he did want to remind me and the manufacturer that I put a little image here of the kind of their inspiration, at least for the font. They like this font. I believe this is Concord, California. And so he.
Can you scroll a little bit so we can see it?
Yeah, I can figure that out. Okay.
Well, it has the little thing on the top.
They did not like any of the decorative elements on it. So they didn't want to do that. So it was more the font style that was inspiring.
So could you go back up to the sign part of that?
So
that's what the sign will look like.
Yes, so what will probably happen is we'll be sending out a bid request and we'll send them with all these parameters and get returned with images, right? Right, Brian, they'll return with some kind of image, yeah.
Which the planning commission will approve, or somebody will approve.
I hadn't thought about taking it back to the planning commission, but we can certainly do that.
Well, I just want to make sure that it's all. I trust you.
Please, not again.
I don't want to beat this.
Okay. Anything else, Amy, before I throw it to the council? So let's start with Aaron.
You guys, I swear to God, I'm checking off the last thing on my list with the fire advisory committee. Amy, thank you. I mean, just getting this stuff, and Dwayne, you sat on that sign committee forever, and thank you. And I'm sure the Firewise groups in the city are going to be very excited. So good job.
Eric.
No, I'm good. I assume it's going to meet all the state standards too. I'm sure you would.
I'm assuming that.
Retro reflectivity.
Yes.
That's the word.
And they aren't going to burn to the ground either. You know, it's like, here we go.
That is so important.
It is so important.
But it is about safety.
It might melt to the ground.
I have nothing. Just go for it.
Thank you.
Get signed.
I just want to know what the fluted sleeve looks like. What's up with the fluted sleeve that cost $150 more, $180 more?
Those would just be in the
historic
district. I don't know if you're familiar with their standard breakaway, but
yeah, just an extra decorative thing that costs a significant amount. I just would like to see it. I don't care.
It's basically this on the image. Here.
Okay.
So this is a fluted sleeve. So it's just a
It's what we
sleeve that
have,
goes over the breakaway.
Our street lights out.
Yeah.
It's a small version of our streetlights,
Yeah.
but instead of being big at the base and tapering up, it's pretty uniform to the top.
The sleeve that goes over.
And it makes sense for the historical, it does. I like, and that doesn't mean that it has to be on all of our streets. You know, one of the things is just removing the wood signs. So.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah.
Thank you. That happened in Paradise. They didn't know where to go.
Right,
They didn't know
exactly.
where to go.
And we've been asking for it. I honestly, you guys, this is literally was the last thing on my list that needed to be completed. So I'm almost ready to cry. So.
Did you have more?
No, okay, that was it.
Danielle?
I had absolutely nothing to do with this, but I fully support it. And I trust our planning commission and Amy and Brian to see this through.
Here.
So this goes
Dwayne's
back
gonna cry.
25 years. I did 13 years on the chamber board, 3 years as president before I got elected here, 12 years here. So 25 years this has been worked on.
Oh, my goodness.
It goes back to Vern Taylor being told by city manager after city manager that we didn't have the money. So Vern out at the city yard would use a router and route a wooden sign for us and paint it white so that we had something. He did his best. The patch built it together and they would get torn down and broken. Most recently, Bubba Highsmith, our past public works director, he was out walking the street doing the inventory with us, telling us that the state code required the signs to be X amount of feet off the ground. So this goes on forever. And about every 3 years, I would come down and find the pile of samples. So Dennis Kutch, Leanne Brooks, our past planner, Cindy Siegfried, Cindy was working on this forever. There was a pile hidden in City Hall somewhere, either in the Weatherall room, downstairs in the police department, in the garage, in the safe. And I would go find it and dig it up with all the paperwork and actual physical sign samples that we made, that we put together. Valerie Moberg, past council member, walked the streets with us. Sean was probably the last one. I think that I went upstairs and I said, Sean, they really exist. We have them. Nobody believed it. And we'd already done the
I have
fonts. We'd
seen
already
them.
gone through 6 planning commissions over the years that agreed on it. And then we'd always have one person somehow that didn't like the font, didn't like the color, that would roadblock it. And we'd start over again. So is there anybody else I did not thank? Well, Amy, Brian, Bill, Falcone, my gosh. So all the people, Dennis and Leanne Brooks, really. Leanne was a merchant that was so frustrated that she went and paid out of her pocket to have some nice foam core signs made in a nice color that she put out here on Spring Street when she was in the old gas station with her art gallery, because she got tired of waiting on city council and city hall to make this happen and the planning commissions. So thank you. Thank you. I mean, I live here, just so you guys know too, I know we talked about the wood burning up and people couldn't drive Paradise, but Santa Rosa had metal signs and nobody can read them either because it just melted. But it's still better than wood, so I agree, as far as longevity and for public works not have to deal with it all the time. With that, public comment. Does anybody like to comment on the sign topics?
There's a group you out there that doesn't like you.
Here we go.
This is important.
From a police training officer perspective, for the last 16 and a half years here, I've trained every single police officer to come here. That's awesome. If you get somebody that comes to work here that is not from here, and you're like, okay, let's go here, and at 3 a.m., they can't see wood signs. They don't reflect, they're not painted well, et cetera, et cetera. That's awesome. So, and I've lived here since 1999, so I always thought it. But I think it's awesome. I think it'll help new police officers, new firefighters, et cetera. Just anybody who doesn't know how to drive home when the road's closed. When you say go to the street, turn, whatever. So I think they look great, and I think other than the earlier stuff, best thing of the night.
Thank you.
And I would add that we would like to do something with the wood signs. There's been ideas of auctioning off. There's been ideas of having a booth at Victorian Christmas and selling them, with some burnishment or, putting your name on the back of it. So we will be looking at that because, there'll be there's essentially no value to the city once we
but I
take
think
them down.
there's a lot of people that might like that.
I think there's several businesses that have expressed interest in a Broad Street sign, for example, or, things like that.
So it's a couple of historic society.
Yep, we'll bring that back to the council when
definitely.
we have, a good operating plan for that.
And I would also hope that eventually this will migrate to Seven Hills. It's not just downtown.
Oh, please.
Florida.
This would be citywide.
We our Seven Hill folks have been told things like that before. So I just want to
I know Shane wants to replace some signs in all different areas.
And with the stop sign at Arnold and Searles, it may end up being that intersection gets these, because we're going to be working on.
that makes sense.
And I'm sorry, Gabby, anybody else virtually online?
If you'd like to make a comment on the topic, please raise your hand on the right-hand corner. We do not.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing I'll throw at you before I guess we jump in here is, please, if you can hold off before you order, avoid our street, Valley Street by the bike shop temporarily. Because once I am not mayor, so it doesn't appear that I'm asking for favors, our neighborhood is actually going to see if there's a way to petition to change the name of our Valley Street back to the historic name of that street.
Which is?
So it used to be a lumber yard. It was a lumber mill there. And the lady brought it up who has bought the old McCabe
Oh, yeah, they fixed
property.
that. They fixed
It's
it.
amazing. Another one of our houses just sold, is being completely remodeled. I wasn't aware that it used to have a different name, and that the lumber yard was there, lumber mill was there, I should say. So I'm gonna
What
come
was
down.
it?
and-
What was the name? What was the name?
To be determined.
Really?
Oh,
Cross around.
Oh,
It just happened.
For all of you listening at home, if you know,
It's a
email.
family's name. It's a family's name, and we haven't confirmed 100% yet that they're okay with us approaching this. So I don't want to.
Can you check that name?
Yeah, I'll throw it to you guys. And actually earlier, so that was, I'm sorry, I'm way off topic. Let's finish this bill and then I'll speak on that later. So we have nobody else. We're done with public comment. I'm closing it. We are ready to move forward.
We,
Go for it.
I move that we approve the new sign configuration for installation as directed, as written in the report.
I second.
Motion and a second. Looking for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Manette?
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fleming?
Yes.
And Mayor Strasser?
Yes, my last vote. Thank you.
Aw.
So, I'll wait.
Thank
for
you,
my-
Amy.
That's a great place.
Thanks, Amy.
I'll wait for my turn to speak for this city manager report. Anything?
Sure, briefly, the facilities committee for the judicial council met on Friday. The mayor and I were on the Zoom. It's not actually a Zoom, but they don't allow you to provide public comment. It went about as well as it could possibly go, which is still not to our favor, but it could have gone much worse. Ultimately, they did vote to recommend that the full judicial council put option 3, which is the relocation of the courthouse, into the mix for budget funding in next year's state budget, with the added caveat that it be relocated as close to or within the downtown historic district as possible. So nobody knows exactly what that means. So I'm taking that as license for Mayor Strasser and I to continue to engage to prove that option 2 might be option 3 with a different configuration, especially if we can prove that the pricing is more accurate with our numbers than with their numbers. So still moving forward, still at a disadvantage, but we still have a window of opportunity to address some things there. And then lastly, I'd just like to share that the selected candidate for our police chief recruitment is nearing completion of his background process. We anticipate a start date of July 18th, and we'll look forward to him meeting with various community leaders and engaging with the committee and the businesses and the like. Look for a press release next week on his name and bio and that kind of thing once we know everything is locked down. But more importantly, even though that person is probably watching tonight, I'd really like to thank Ed Steck, our interim police chief. He has been here much longer than he anticipated. This ended up being a 3-hour tour for him. His generation knows what I'm talking about. My kids have no idea what Gilligan's Island is. But really would like to thank him for his service to the city and helping shepherd not only the city through the process of retaining and enhancing its police department, but also helping find us a good candidate for the next police chief. So there will be a going away party, so look for the emails on that. He won't just sneak out the back door, although maybe he will, but wanted to call him out in the back of the room and say thank you. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Gary?
I don't have anything much. I did want to, I thought the long table dinner was great fun. And, oh yeah, well done. And, like 125 years.
Wow.
Super long. It's a lot of fun. yeah, otherwise, quickly happy with the way.
I'd just like to say, yeah, I mean, feels like we're making progress. So I think that's a wonderful thing.
Aaron, anything else?
I have nothing.
Danielle?
Nothing else.
So Sean, you made a comment earlier about the awards that you weren't sure what our tradition had been. And so this is my third term as mayor. My first term, they gave me a gavel with my name misspelled. The second term, they gave nothing. So you really are starting fresh. So you set the bar now. It's gonna be hard to follow.
I want a gavel.
We'll misspell your name as well.
Well, I got
Two
one.
L's.
I got one out.
It's been done.
Yeah. DWAYNE. Yeah. And then the second thing that I didn't mention earlier when I talked about some of my disappointments in these 12 years is I also disappointed that in all that time, our community as a whole and myself on our councils over the years were not able to help the Nisenan achieve recognition for their tribal recognition with the federal government. And I hope that we do not let that slide and we continue to work hard on that. I did hear Councilmember Bob Branston today with Grass Valley on the radio live saying that he was hoping he could get Grass Valley to step up and support as a whole, and that he was shocked that they hadn't stepped up in the past 40 years. So we have Grass Valley on board now too. So I just want to make that comment. I'm sorry to the Nisenan that we have not been able to achieve that, and I trust that we will.
And they have a big mural down there.
And it should have been here, but that's okay.
I know.
So, yeah.
We've got room.
Yeah. So with that, I
Seven
think
Hills.
I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Everybody have a great evening. Thanks for coming tonight.
You guys.
Great week.
Thank you.